Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christi Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hi there. Today we are going to radiate peace with Nikki Crawford of Your Peaceful Space. Nikki practices here in Kansas City, but you also can work with people around the world, right?
Yes.
Through the magic of the internet.
Yes.
It's wonderful. So I'm really excited to be talking about how our clutter, our thoughts, the different things that we hang on to in our life can influence how we feel, how we act, and what we radiate. Welcome, Nikki. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how did you get into Your Peaceful Space?
Well, it was several things, but I think the tipping point for me was about 10 years ago. I had just finished my PhD at KU in special education, and my daughter was also getting ready to go away to college.
Okay.
And my then husband and I had created a particular kind of life, the kind of life where you buy the biggest house you can afford and the nicest cars and as much stuff as you possibly can to fill the house.
Knowing you now, I find that so hard to imagine.
It was a different life, yes.
Sure.
And as I finished my degree and got to start doing some traveling and working around the country, and really enjoying that, but still feeling this sense of there was something missing.
Oh, yeah.
And then when my daughter got ready to go to college, I had a full-on midlife crisis.
Really?
And looked around one day and thought, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What have I created? Like, this is not the life, this isn't the life I want anymore.
Yeah, and what did you have to show for it, really?
Stuff.
Stuff.
I had a lot of stuff to show for it.
Sure.
Yes. And so I talked my husband into downsizing, and we gave away probably 85% of our belongings.
Really?
We sold the big house and moved into a condo on the plaza that was 715 square feet.
Oh my goodness, that's the equivalent of a tiny house.
Yes, and I may have, overshot it a little with my enthusiasm.
The pendulum swung the other way.
It did, yes. And but what it did was it freed up so much time.
Of course.
So much energy. And quite a bit of money, too. Because
absolutely.
I was no longer spending every Sunday night at Target.
Right.
Just seeing what was new. And I also talked him into getting a storage unit because there were certain things, that I just couldn't give away, but they wouldn't fit into our new place. And it was about a year after we moved in and we went back to face the storage unit that everything really clicked for me.
Really?
We were standing there trying to remember what was in the unit. And all we could remember was the Christmas tree. That was the only thing in there that we could even remember.
Wow.
So that was sort of I thought, this is a crazy thing that I've done.
This is crazy.
Yes. And so all of that extra time and energy that I had on my hands really allowed me to get clear about what I no longer wanted in my life. And sometimes I think in order to kind of find what's next for yourself, you have to let go of what you're holding on to. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a lot of the stuff.
The stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. How did it feel when you started to lose your grip of the stuff? How did that feel? How did that transform you?
Well, at first it was terrifying.
Of course.
But as we did it, and really it seemed like as we practiced letting go, it got to be easier and easier. And, there was a lot of wondering about why we had accumulated all of those things.
Right.
So, and we actually ended up getting divorced. And I think in part, when we got to the smaller space, without all of the things around us, we were really faced with our relationship. Mm-hmm. And so while I work with clients to declutter their physical things, most people don't get divorced, and it's not necessary, of course.
Right.
But that's what worked for us. And I really believe it was the letting go of the things not serving us, getting into a space, even though it was a smaller living quarters, it was a much more spacious life.
Yes, absolutely. You got rid of much more than just stuff. You really went through and weeded out your relationship.
Yes.
Wow. Was that a big revelation to you?
It was. I knew that we weren't in sync,
Right.
right? But I didn't understand the depth of it.
Absolutely.
We had a lot of other things that were distracting us from paying attention to that.
Absolutely.
Right?
I wonder almost if you were filling that void or trying to avoid looking at it by just filling up with stuff.
I'm sure you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
Distractions are the way many of us get through difficult things.
Oh, absolutely.
Either eating or shopping or surfing the internet or completely overwhelmed with social media. It's distracting is something good to notice.
It is good to know about yourself. Absolutely. So how did you move from having these realizations about yourself and your own life to actually reaching out and wanting to help others with that?
Well, I had worked at the university for a long time, and some of the projects that we were working on were very interesting and very intense. And as I was moving through those, it got to be pretty clear to me that I wanted to create something of my own.
Yeah.
And that it felt like it was the right time in my life to do that. And when I was playing around with that idea, one of the things that's always been really easy for me is helping people get organized and let go of stuff.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in a very full house. My mother is an artist and calls herself a collector of potentially useful things. And so from a very young age, I helped her get organized and would talk to her about letting go of some vases or boxes or books or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I, as an adult, was a friend that you would call if you were getting ready to move or needed to get the basement in order, because I loved doing that. I loved doing that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I thought, well, I can make a business out of that.
Right.
I had just spent the last 30 years coaching people to change their behavior in my work in education and before in the field of disabilities. And so I knew how to do that. I knew how to support people, how to coach people, and how to help them change their behavior. And I thought, oh, this is, it came together so perfectly. And so now when I'm coaching people, it's very comfortable. When I'm giving workshops or I'm speaking, it's very comfortable. It's something I've done for years. The content is slightly different.
Right.
But
the approach is.
The approach is the same. Good teaching is good teaching.
Yeah.
Right?
It is. And I was wondering how you had taken, I knew you were, had this degree in special ed, and I thought, how does that parlay into this? But that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
This seemed to be pretty a natural segue for you.
It was. It's certainly not one I could have seen coming.
Of course not. No. Right. How could you do?
But that's what came out of it. That's what I've created from it. So.
Oh my gosh. How long have you been in business with your Peaceful Space?
A little over 3 years now.
Oh, good for you. So what are some of the growth pains or the hiccups along the way? Did you encounter anything like that?
Yes.
Yes. Any small business owner is going to encounter that.
Yes. Well, I felt pretty confident from the beginning about my coaching skills, and even went and got a coaching certification with Gay and Kathleen Hendricks.
Wonderful.
Amazing people. And so that helped bolster me even more in that. But I knew nothing about business.
Right. Absolutely.
I had always worked for a nonprofit or at a university, so I had no idea about marketing or what it really takes to get yourself out there, and the almost the mind frame that it takes to be comfortable to step out and say, hey, I've got something that can help you, and not to be shy about that.
Absolutely.
So it's been an interesting 3 years. It's been sometimes it felt hard and impossible, and other times it's just felt like a pure joy. Right. So I can see looking back that the times when it felt hard, it was just because I didn't know what I was doing. And that, and holding that a little bit lighter has been helpful in the last year or so, that it's okay that I can learn new things. I can learn new technology.
Absolutely. Right.
So,
And so what do you love about what you do?
Oh, I love helping people get clear.
Yeah, helping people get clear. Now, it seems like the last time I spoke with you, you talked about how your business had kind of shifted in a way. Yeah, how did your business shift in a way?
Well, I'm still doing one-on-one coaching, which I really enjoy. And in fact, I just had a call with someone before I came here, and it was a beautiful interaction, because we talked about her fearful thinking and how that looks like it can stop her from things. So, when you work individually with people, you can go deep. And what I'm also adding more to my business now, and kind of looking at a little more seriously, is speaking. And I've done a lot of workshops around town in the last 3 years, and I love being able to speak to a group of people because I can reach more people.
Absolutely. Right.
And I'm now a regular on Fox 4 on the second Thursday in their Therapy Thursday session. So
oh my God.
I know when I'm speaking there, I'm reaching thousands of people, and that's the most fun. The more people I can reach and, inspire or kind of point out that if you're feeling stuck, there's a way to get clear. There's a way to see your way through whatever situation you're in.
Oh, absolutely. It's just one thought at a time, one belief at a time. You had been talking to me a bit about beliefs. Yeah, where have you evolved to in your thought about beliefs, or your belief about beliefs?
My belief about beliefs,
right.
Yes. Yes, I've been focusing on that and getting my own coaching over the last few years, and really understanding in a deep way that we can choose what we believe in our thoughts. Yeah. So we have thousands of thoughts that come through our heads every day.
Yeah, somebody said 40,000 or so.
Yes, I've seen 50 to 70,000 as a number. That. Yes. And so if you can imagine that your thoughts are coming on a conveyor belt, right? Because they come all the time. They don't cease, right?
They really don't.
There's always thoughts. And that we can actually choose which of those thoughts we want to engage with.
I love that.
So what my client and I were just talking about was, she has these old thoughts, very self-critical thoughts about how she can't complete things and there must be something wrong with her and she's, a failure in some way.
Right.
And we were talking about how familiar those thoughts are to her, right? Those are old thoughts. Right. She's seen these thoughts for years and years and years.
Right.
And that she can actually, when she sees those thoughts come through her mind on that conveyor belt, notice and acknowledge them, and then just let them go by and wait for a new thought.
Yeah.
And she can choose which one she wants to pick up and spend time with. So you can actually decide which thoughts you want to engage with, right? You can't change your thinking, I don't think, but you can choose the ones that you pay attention to.
Exactly. And just turn toward a better feeling thought, a better feeling thought, a better feeling thought.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Somehow I'm just envisioning Lucy Ricardo with the chocolates.
Yes.
And choosing the ones that you want to engage with.
Right, right. Because more come.
Yeah.
And you get to choose based on which ones are more helpful.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
The world, you're not going to fall apart if you ignore those old thoughts, those fearful thoughts.
Right.
Which somehow I think we believe.
Thought. We believe that, don't we? Mm-hmm. It's just a thought. And we can choose better feeling thoughts. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that image. And so do you still work with people on their clutter, or have you moved toward this kind of thought clutter?
They're very related, as you might imagine.
I can imagine.
Yes, and so it really depends on the door that they come through to me, right? So it can be physical clutter in their homes.
Sure.
It can be relationship clutter.
Sure.
It can be their calendar is crazy.
Oh my gosh, I am recognizing myself in all of this, Nikki.
Yeah. Or, just that sense of overwhelm. So the word overwhelm, that descriptor is the word I hear the most from people.
Sure.
I'm overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed. I don't know where to start.
Right. Right. And so what does this clutter and this overwhelm do to people?
Well, depending on the person, in particular for women, they did some research at UCLA and they were talking about physical clutter.
Yeah.
But when women think about their physical clutter, they can release cortisol.
Oh.
And I don't know of any research about emotional clutter or other life clutter.
Right.
But physical clutter, we know women can release cortisol. And they don't have to be in the clutter, they just have to think about it and
Absolutely.
have it in their minds. And so, cortisol is that stress hormone that's perfect if you need to fight or run, it's the fight or flight thing. But if you're chronically releasing it in your body, it suppresses your immune system. It's highly correlated with weight gain and depression. It's hard on your major organs. So it's, if you're living in a very cluttered situation and you feel you have a feeling of dis-ease or uneasiness when you're in it, then you could be releasing cortisol.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense. Well, and it's, oh my gosh, there's digital clutter. There's emotional clutter. There's belief clutter, I would imagine, just sorting out the thoughts. I can imagine this would stretch into many areas of life. Do you find that there's a lot of overlap? Someone might have physical clutter, but then have all these other types as well?
Yes. And so it really, that's a good question. It really comes, the best place to begin is with your thinking.
Sure.
Because our thoughts, believing, choosing which thoughts to believe, our thoughts then prompt our behavior.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So if we are thinking that these items are too precious to give away because we spent so much money on them, if that's the thought we're believing, then we have a really hard time letting go of those items, right? But if we can change our perspective and consider some different thoughts about these items, then that makes people feel like they're freer and more able to take that step to let go.
Now, what about sentimental and emotional stuff that people, I am so bad about that. I hang on to pictures and photographs and all kinds of memorabilia. Now, what about that?
Well, it's only a problem if it feels like a problem, right?
Right.
So if you're not tripping over boxes of photos or feeling overwhelmed by the number of things you have, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having those things.
Right, okay.
If you're at a point where you would like to maybe sort out some things and let go of some, there's a couple things. One is recognizing that if that item was given to you by, say, your grandmother, that you're not going to forget her even if you let go of her dining room table and chairs.
Love that.
So the only reason that item has been, we kind of assign our connection with a person to the physical item.
We do.
Right? And of course, the love that you feel for your grandmother is not contained in that dining room set. Right? It's contained in your heart and your soul and your mind.
Absolutely.
But I think we get confused because when we see the dining room table, we think of our grandmother, right? So it prompts a memory.
Right.
So if you could have something out that you see every day that was hers, and you get that same, that same bump, that same bump of sweetness and remembering her, that's just as good as having 12 boxes of her things. Just having a few out. Because what you really want is that feeling of connection and love.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. That is great, because I think people, even my young daughter, she's almost 12, and she kind of is very sentimental about things and likes to hold on to them and hold on to that memory. But I love that way of dissociating. It's really inside, isn't it? So what do you find happens with people when you help them let go of things, help them declutter, help them change their thinking? What happens?
Well, they always have more clarity about what it is they're wanting to do next.
Right, absolutely. You know what? I almost wanted to call this segment Radiate Clarity.
It could be.
Yes. It could be.
Yes.
But then I think Radiate Peace is perfect. So, so they get more clarity in their life. Is there anything else that happens with them?
I think that people often feel braver also.
That seems unexpected to me. Was that a surprise to you?
It was, yes. There's
Braver.
a confidence and a bravery that comes with facing what you're afraid of and moving through it.
I wonder if some of it has to do with your hiding behind these things. And then when you take that away, you have to step out.
Yes, I think so. And when you do step out, you see that you're fine.
Right.
Right? I mean, your innate well-being is not touched by giving things away.
Right.
You're not giving you away.
Right.
But it sort of uncovers more of you, I think.
It uncovers more of you. I love that.
Yes.
It makes me think of Dumbo and his feather. You know, Dumbo had that feather, and if he held on to it, he would fly. And that was a thing that he held on to. When he let go of that, he found that no, it was already within him. Right. So I'm just wondering if that is kind of what happens to people.
I think so, yes. And also, of course, a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
People have this sense of freedom, that they don't need these things to help them feel whole.
Well, and you think about just in physical clutter, you have to get a bigger house to hold it. You have to work more hours to afford the house, maybe rent a storage unit. So it takes a lot of maintenance and upkeep to hold on to everything. And you're pretty soon just spending a lot of time just maintaining an area for all of these things that you collect or take in.
Right, yes.
It's a lifestyle, like what you were just talking about.
Yes, I spoke with a cancer support group last night at Shawnee Mission, and one of the women was sharing that as she was going through her cancer treatment, she was home a lot and noticing all of the clutter in their house. And that when she got to feeling better, she and her husband really downsized in a drastic way, letting go of things. And she said
Oh my gosh.
she really, it was that shift in perspective of facing a life, altering illness.
Right.
That helped her see what was more important. And she said she really is discriminating about what she brings into the house now.
Absolutely.
And so I think, that's clarity, right?
There's clarity, absolutely. Gaining perspective of what's important. Now, what success stories do you think you've had? I always love to ask people about that.
Yes. Well, a woman that I'm working with right now is, we're not dealing with physical clutter, but she has some things in her life that she's feeling cluttered about.
Yeah.
And one of them was a relationship, and she referred to him as a deadbeat boyfriend, and he's been moved on down the road now. And she's also in a job that she really, really dislikes, and she's actively looking for work. And so for her, a lot of it was around conversations about her believing her fearful thinking.
Sure,
That,
absolutely.
he was okay, this gentleman was okay, so that's why she was hanging on to him. I'm not sure that's quite the right way to put it, but that's why she stayed in the relationship with him. The job she has, it's okay. But she's coming to a place in her life where she doesn't want to settle for okay. Right? She wants to create an interesting, enlivening life.
Oh, I love that.
And so by clearing away her thinking,
Right.
her fearful, negative thinking, not believing it anymore, it's still there, but she doesn't have to believe it, she can move forward and know she's going to be okay.
Yeah.
She's, that innate well-being's intact without the man and without that job. So that's a beautiful one. I love that.
Oh, that is
story.
beautiful. Well, just because we have these thoughts doesn't mean we have to believe them. Yeah, we can choose to believe whatever we want to. How about that feels incredibly freeing for her? And feeling like she can really create what she wants.
Right, because, we are creating our lives by every choice we make. It's whether or not we're conscious of what we're doing, right?
Absolutely. Whether we're intentional about it and putting that intention into it. I love it. And I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe sometimes people just get so clouded by all this clutter, they can't really see what that they can't see what's most important. So, yeah, I love that. So what do you think is coming up next for you? What do you think the next evolution of your practice might be?
Well, I think I really want to continue to try to reach more people.
Good.
And just having bigger groups, bigger audiences. I really want to become a thought leader in this area of getting clarity, and what can you do now? Our lives are so short.
They
right?
are. Absolutely.
And we can do anything we want. We can do anything we want.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that way often. And,
No.
I have levels of fearful thinking that I still pay attention to, of course.
Right.
But the more I can open and let go of that and feel confident about my soul, my access to wisdom that everyone has.
Absolutely.
That innate well-being, the more I see that I'm risking nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing at risk here. So I can be as big as I can dream to be. I can say I want to be a thought leader in this field of clarity and not apologize for it.
Mm-hmm. Right. That is fully my experience of you, is that you completely embrace that, and you are that.
Thank you.
You have a pretty big platform on the news every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. That's a great reach. Are you seeing any other big projects, like maybe a book or a blog or anything like that?
Well, I have a blog on my website. I've been playing with the idea of a book, and I think that I am more drawn toward speaking rather than writing. Even though I've done a lot of writing, I've published books in my earlier career, but I really feel drawn to stand up in front of people and be an example. Radiate peace.
Yes.
And so I'm actually starting something Friday. I have I'm working with Channel 5 and 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Yes.
Yes, and
my gosh.
They are going to film me coaching a woman who lives in Olathe. And we're going to do the first half of the segment Friday. And I'm going to take her through this coaching process. So she is at a transition point in her life where she is moving into a new career and letting go of some health issues that she's had. So she sees that the clutter in her house, it feels like her clutter is stopping her from moving forward.
Right.
Right? So they're going to film me engaging with her in the coaching process. She'll have some homework and some follow-up to do to sort through some of her things. And then the next half of the segment will be filmed in about a month. And 1-800-GOT-JUNK will come in and take her stuff away for her.
That is so exciting.
It is exciting, yes. And so I hope to be able to use that clip to pitch a television idea or a radio show.
That would be wonderful.
So we'll see what happens with that, but it is very exciting.
Oh my gosh.
And she's so brave to have a camera crew come into her home. I asked lots of people, and not everybody feels comfortable, right? So I'm really appreciating her for, talking about fear, right?
Yes.
Stepping out there, and so we'll see what happens.
And there's accountability there, and oh my goodness.
Major accountability, yes.
You're very fortunate to find somebody who'd be that brave. I don't know that I'd be able to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, that is really exciting. So what do you hope will come out of that?
Well, there's a friend of a friend in LA, and I'm going to pitch it to her, and we'll see, maybe something locally. But I would love to, just get some more airtime to help people see that they can create what they want in their lives. And
they absolutely can.
If they feel like there's stuff in the way, that there's a way through it, there's a way around it. Our beliefs can't actually, my fear is not at my door stopping me from leaving the house, right? But sometimes it looks that way.
Right.
And so to really put our fearful thinking in its place and let our deeper and wiser selves run the show.
Wow. What do you think where do you think this holding on to negative thoughts and negative beliefs, these things that hold us back, where does that come from?
I think that, and this is something I've learned from a psychologist named Rick Hansen, and he writes a lot. His latest book is called Resiliency, and he studies a lot of brain, brain plasticity.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with
I
it.
am.
Okay.
I am. That's wonderful. Yeah.
So I have learned a lot from him, and we're actually going to study with him in a couple of weeks in California for a week.
Fantastic.
And so he says that we have a negativity bias, that because we have evolved from beings who kept themselves safe, on the Serengeti, right?
Right.
So they really had to look for danger and look for negative or potentially harmful things to happen, right? They could also look for food and good things, but the consequences of missing the danger
Right.
were great. Like
Yes.
they would die if they missed those cues, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so our brains are still wired with a negativity bias. So we are
Interesting.
still looking for the danger. We are still
Yeah.
looking for the bad stuff.
Interesting. That is fascinating.
And so he talks about how we can actually work with our thinking and shift our brains to notice more of the positive.
Yes.
And so it's not about positive thinking, but it's about acknowledging that in any situation that you don't like, there are very likely some things about the situation that are okay also.
Right. There have to be.
Right. So the glass isn't half empty or half full, it's actually both.
Exactly.
And so the more we can notice what we're enjoying about a situation or what's pleasant about it, the more likely we are to notice those things tomorrow.
Right.
And so there's a way to train your brain to see that stuff. But that's not something that everybody knows or everybody practices, or, many of us don't even realize that we don't have to believe our own thinking.
We don't have to believe that.
So it's a very new thing, I think, and we're learning so much about it just based on brain imaging. So they can see areas of the brain that are lighting up when you're having particular thoughts. And so it's so exciting. It's all it feels like it's all coming together right now. I mean, I think it's been coming together for a long time, but.
Well, and yet this is what so many other thought leaders are talking about, how our thoughts create our reality. And we've been hearing this message for decades. The Celestine Prophecy, The Secret, very many different leaders and writers, unity and the New Thought movement, all comes from this. And now I feel like science is catching up with it.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And proving what we know innately. And that is really exciting. For me, that's my sweet spot. That nexus. And
Yes.
that is really exciting. I'm so glad that you get to have that opportunity to study this. I'm really eager to find out what the implications are for all of us. I feel like this is going to be important. I feel like it's going to be huge.
I do too. And I think it's, as I'm coming to understand more about how our brains function, it really helps me loosen up on my own self-judgments.
Yes.
Right? Oh, I shouldn't be so negative. I shouldn't be so critical. I shouldn't. Well, that's how my brain's designed. And that's okay. And I can make a choice.
And you can make a choice.
Right.
Absolutely. We have those thousands and thousands of thoughts going through our head every day. So, we can always direct it to where we want it to go. In my meditation classes, I talk about just letting the thought go by. Just let it go by, however it looks best to do that. Conveyor belt, I love that. That's great. And just pick out the things that really resonate. Yeah.
So in your meditation classes, so you're really helping people see that there's a gap between their thoughts and their actions, right? Or even their thoughts and their judgments about themselves.
Absolutely.
So that's beautiful. Meditation is such a great tool for that, isn't it?
It's a great tool. Absolutely. We get to really look at what the brain is doing. And I tell people, you can't stop your heart from beating, you can't stop your lungs from breathing, and you can't stop your mind from thinking. But we can disengage. We can learn to slow our heartbeat. If it's racing, we can learn to slow our breath. If we're out of breath, we can learn to slow our thoughts and be more deliberate and intentional with them. Right. And what I love about this podcast, what I love about just meeting all the people like you, is that we're really all doing very similar work. We're just looking at it from different angles, and I love what you're doing to help people get that clarity and that peace There's nothing like it. And, everybody we're all holding on to something.
Yes.
Whether it's physical, digital, or even thought. We all hold on to something. What do you find is the hardest thing for people to let go of?
I think it's really their own critical, believing their own critical voice.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing.
Oh, that is hard.
It's hard for me.
Yeah. It's hard for me too.
Yeah.
We're our own worst critic. I've heard some people say that the negative voice inside your head is the voice of your mother. And I think for many people that's true. But, think how ingrained that is. Right. Oh, that must be hard. And so how do you feel like you help somebody connect with that and to let go of that negative voice? Like, what would you tell them to have peace about this negative voice that's going on in their heads?
Well, I would come back to the conveyor belt and not give that voice any more credibility than any other voice. Right? I mean, it's there in some way to keep us safe in a sort of ill-advised way,
a
right?
Very primitive and primal way.
Right. But it really doesn't keep us safe. And it keeps us small and contracted.
Well, when you're small and contracted, you're not out there visible to everyone who could be a predator.
Right.
So it is a self-preservation.
Right. And so knowing that you're safe and you're okay is helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. But just seeing it as another thought on the conveyor belt that you get to choose whether or not you pick up again. If it's not giving you new information,
right,
then you don't have to keep listening. There's nothing new there. There's no insight there.
Yeah.
It's the same old thing. And that's great, thanks, and move along. I'm going to wait for something else to come that's more helpful. Right? It's okay. I think I heard Liz Gilbert, the author, talk about it in this way, and I love it. She talks about it being in the car. Like, this voice can be in the car with you. I think she was kind of using the metaphor of it being a little girl.
Oh, interesting.
This voice can be in the car, but she can't drive. Like, don't let her drive,
That's great.
She can be in the back seat. It's okay. She's been there forever with you. She's always going to be there, but she doesn't get to drive anymore.
No.
So,
that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can let our deeper wisdom drive.
Absolutely.
Our more conscious awareness.
Yeah, or more conscious awareness being the one that's in control. That is wonderful. Now, if people are wanting to connect with you, how would they connect with you?
Well, they can come to my website, which is yourpeacefulspace.com.
Good. Okay.
And I'm also on Facebook under Your Peaceful Space and on LinkedIn. And gosh, I just love to talk to people about whatever it is they're facing that feels like too much, that makes them feel overwhelmed and stuck.
Yeah.
And
I love how you start with the physical stuff, because that's kind of an easy way. That's an easy in. Everybody's got that. And it's a fairly safe thing to talk about. When we start to talk about our beliefs, it's like, those are my thoughts. That's my stuff. That's much more personal than, the physical stuff. But you gently ease into it. And you're so easy to talk to, and you're so gentle and peaceful and centered and all these things. Now, I can imagine you'd be very effective at what you do.
Well, I really enjoy it, and I don't even have to bring up the internal stuff because it comes out.
Sure.
Right? I mean, there's a reason people are hanging on to things and it's felt difficult for them. So as soon as we start moving things around or they start moving things out of the house, all of this other stuff comes to the surface and they can see it and experience it, and then we can talk about it. Also.
I love that.
So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put all of your contact information in the show notes. If there's any other resources that you might have for people, I would love to have that. So I can post that as well.
Okay.
And it has been so enlightening to talk to you, Nikki. I really enjoy it very, very much. I very much enjoyed this. So thank you so much. And perhaps we'll have you on again. Would you be open to that?
I would love to.
Oh, I
Yes.
would love that too. I would love that too.
Yes, and thank you for having me. This is a wonderful thing you're doing. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about helping people radiate what they want to radiate in our lives.
Yes, that's
And
beautiful.
showing up how we want to show up. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.